AI. It has been the buzzword of choice for the tech industry for the past few years. While a lot of the focus is on LLM-driven generative AI, all the hype has also had the effect that pretty much anything that would have just been called an algorithm a few years ago is now called AI. It's controversial, to say the least, and it's only getting more attention and more controversy. I'm not really a tech YouTuber, I'm a video game YouTuber, but lately there's been a few things more relevant to my realm that has made me want to talk about it. Plus, I wanted to experiment with just more conversational videos where I just put on some B-roll and talk about some stuff, so yeah, we're doing that. Now, obviously, this is an AI video on a gaming channel. You can probably guess where I'm going. DLSS 5 is the hot, contentious thing everyone's talking about, and that convinced me to do this video now. And yeah, I think DLSS 5 is pretty awful. Granted, visuals are subjective, but if enough people think this sucks, then it kind of renders the whole thing fucking pointless because it will not be a selling point. But I have bigger, more objective concerns here. The obvious issue is it overriding artistic intent, though apparently the CEO claims this won't be the case, so okay, fine, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. No, actually I won't, but I don't think I can argue the point coherently at this point, and I also don't think it matters, because what happens when companies decide they can offload the work of making something look really good and coherent onto an AI? Instead of hiring skilled artists, just hire some rookies, have them do some basic mock-ups, fire them when the work is done, because this is a tech industry, and lean entirely on the AI to make things look good and give it an artistic direction. Hell, at that point, they'll probably be using a lot of AI in creating the initial assets too. And also, having looked at the promotional material, if this is actually supposed to give developers more control, then the promotional material on NVIDIA's own damn website does a real shit job of convincing us that this AI tool will help games look more like they're supposed to, and not just mangle the artist's vision. Let's just look at the very first screenshot they show from Resident Evil Requiem, because it illustrates everything the demonstrations seem to show getting fucked up. The first thing that smacks you in the face is that the main character looks like a completely different fucking person. Details like fuller lips, a sharper jaw, and more prominent cheekbones make her look older, and how to even word this? Like someone thought she needed to be more conventionally attractive, with literally no thought given to how that affects the mood or the impression people get about her character. Even if you do think this looks good, there is more to a good character design than just looking attractive. Plus, the added and altered details change which part of her design tends to draw your eye. You can see this a lot in hair becoming way more detailed and in things like how the lighting shifts. Plus, the background is equally mangled. What was a dark and moody scene with dramatic lighting gets both extremes just chopped off, and the whole thing rendered far less visually interesting. The dark shadows are brightened, stripping the scene of its dark and oppressive atmosphere, while the dramatic lighting that gave the scene a lot of character is just kind of gone. And I think that's the biggest issue with a technology like this. Visual design is an incredibly detail-oriented and intentional art form, especially in a medium like video games. Details that can seem insignificant out of context all add up to a greater whole. An AI that can't understand that and can't have a vision, I genuinely see no place for it in this sort of application. And then I have one even bigger concern, one that will remain even if the technology gets better, or if this turns out to just be them botching the settings for this demonstration. And the concern is one you might be able to guess if you pay attention to the type of games I tend to cover. Remasters. I already have my issues with the culture around remasters. People complaining about graphics in old games already annoys me a lot, plus remasters tend to feel like an attempt at an easy cash grab. The best value a remaster can really bring, in my opinion, is as a port, making the game playable on hardware where it previously wasn't available, and maybe generating a bit of hype in the process that gets people to check it out. And yeah, no complaints about these positives. Anything that gets people playing more old games is great. But hearing about DLSS 5, I have to wonder, can this just be slapped on any old game to make a remaster? Because that sounds horrid. There's already issues with remasters overriding the art design of the original in the process of modernizing the visuals, and I cannot imagine DLSS 5 making this anything but worse. Plus, older games will naturally have less detail for DLSS 5 to work with, so it raises the question of how much more the AI will fill in, leaving even less of the original art style. And look, AI art is already broadly criticized for looking samey, and I think games have been made worse and less distinct by the push for greater visual fidelity, so to get more opinionated here, yeah, I think AI will make games look more samey and generally worse. Plus, imagine how this would ruin a game with character customization. Just in the screenshots we've looked at, we can see this significantly altering important details of how a character looks, and we know AI tends to have difficulty with consistency. You can even see this on the DLSS 5 page by looking at the 2 Resident Evil Requiem screenshots with Grace in them. The AI interprets her 2 different ways in 2 different scenes. I do not want to have a character I worked hard on mangled because a fucking bullshit AI filter decided that my character would look better if a few things were changed, and completely missed what I was going for with the character in the process. Never mind, it sounds like a nightmare to make a character look a certain way when your design is being reinterpreted by AI, with no guarantee that it will interpret your choices the same way later. Look, maybe you could train an AI to consistently interpret a game's characters in a certain way, but that goes out the window when it can't know what a player was intending with their character design. And you know, this all just makes me think, can most of us just all agree that consumer-focused AI tends to be pretty lame? So much of it is overhyped or just sort of a vague promise of the future. The big one is asking AI such as ChatGPT for information, and I'm just not inclined to trust it. Maybe it will get better, maybe it already has, but there's always that doubt. And honestly, it's not like AI is really that much faster or more convenient than, you know, just Googling it. Even before Google added its own AI summary feature that I am so actively adverse to that these days I actually tend to look stuff up on Wikipedia rather than trying to Google anything. And there's also the fact that AI doesn't usually tend to cite its sources, so it feels like AI information is only really trustworthy if you can verify all the information yourself. And now, admittedly, I am in a different situation here than most. I make YouTube videos. If I ask AI for some background information about a Phantasy Star game and get it wrong, then I have spread misinformation. At least using Wikipedia, if I do get some wrong information and someone calls me out on it, we know where to go to correct that information and maybe fix it. So if nothing else, maybe there's a good lesson we can take from this discussion. Don't repost AI information you haven't sourced elsewhere. The damage it can do isn't worth the convenience. Most generative AI creative stuff is just mediocre at best. AI images in particular wound up being a big battleground. But look, here's the thing. If you want to use AI image generation for personal purposes, I don't really have an issue with it. The problem is people putting AI created works out there as their own stuff, because AI creations are just never as good as something made by real human hands. All that is achieved by people posting this stuff is that it becomes more of a pain to find anything actually original and good. Given the choice, I will never choose to spend my time engaging with media made by AI over engaging with media made by a real person. And then agentic AI is often touted as the end game of all this, and look, I get the appeal. I remembered thinking the way the scan visor worked in Metroid Prime was awesome as a kid, the way it could so easily analyze information for you, and replaying the series recently I realized that, oh yeah, this would totally be accomplished via something that's basically AI. And there's a lot of sort of smart computers like that in the media of the aughts that I grew up with. And yeah, I'm inclined to think that this just is not going to happen. Not because it's impossible necessarily, but for the same reason that flying cars aren't going to happen. Yeah, they sound cool, but think about how dangerous cars already are, and multiply that by the dangers and complexity of flying, and suddenly it ain't worth it. With agentic AI hallucinations and the like are real dangers, as are people becoming too reliant on AI to live their lives, and for something like agentic AI, these sorts of issues would just leave it with intolerable failure rates. Look, I don't necessarily think you need to reject AI in your life entirely. For one, I don't think your opinion on something should ever be based on dogma without actually interacting with it, and also some contact with AI will help you spot its use. But I don't think that it's ever going to redefine computing like its proponents want to believe. Not to mention, there's a lot of talk these days about how it's way more expensive to operate than it costs the end user, and it seems likely this is going to blow up at some point, especially since the AI industry has to deal with both per-use costs and upfront costs, both variable and fixed costs in Econ 101 terms. Each individual AI operation costs money, as do the data centers running them. And I don't know that these AI services have enough of a captive audience who will stay in spite of a potentially massive price increase. Because to be honest, most of the potential practical applications I hear of for AI that I actually buy into are either for experts, for companies, or for doing small tasks that are non-critical, tedious, and not easily automated with conventional computing. So I'm really skeptical about the AI future we've all been pitched on, and know the current version of AI is not going to lead to some super intelligent God King AI. So I actually originally considered making a video about AI last summer because of something that happened. I was starting my day in the usual way, browsing YouTube while I try and wake up enough to make breakfast and coffee. I won't get too specific about the channel I found because I don't want to encourage harassment, and also because I didn't care enough to remember more details. But I came across a video that looked right up my alley. It was talking about old RPGs, and the thumbnail looked cool and wasn't from something I recognized. But then I clicked on it, and the voice was obviously AI. And if that was it, I would be okay with it. If they don't want to use their real voice, I totally understand. And hell, if it's just to save some time, I kinda get it. Recording and cleaning my audio is my least favorite process of making my videos. But that got me suspicious and paying closer attention. And I started to notice that the script also sounded like AI. It had the weird hooks and methods for stringing together ideas that always stand out about AI writing to me. So okay, the part that is the heart of the video is AI, but maybe they did write it themselves and punch it up with AI a bit. So I checked the channel and they had only been going for a couple of months, and going by the recent stuff, we're doing a decently sized video every 2 days. Yeah, best case scenario, this is a content farm, churning out crap with as much speed and as little soul as possible, so at that point I'm not inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt on anything. It's either nearly all AI, or honestly trying to be AI. At least the gameplay footage looked real from what little I watched, but it wouldn't surprise me if they acquired the footage from somewhere else, and if AI couldn't even do that, they probably had AI cut together the video too. I'm just out of benefit of the doubt to give them. And that thumbnail that caught my attention was definitely AI. Probably would have stood out more if I didn't have YouTube zoomed way out to counter their apparent insistence on showing you as few videos on a page as possible. And finding this really bothered me. Part of it, sure, is resentment that this person, putting in barely any effort over a couple of months, has more views and subscribers than I have doing this for a couple of years. Because I actually, make my videos instead of having AI do it for me. But this also bothered me because it was my first time encountering AI in the corner of YouTube I care most about. I make the sort of long video essays that I do because I love to watch long video essays, and I just don't see any point in AI video essays. An AI video essay is purely content for the sake of content. The end result of seeing creative works as just, again, content, interchangeable and of no value beyond the time it consumes of the people engaging with it. Because, you see, the issue with an AI video essay about something like a video game is that, well, ultimately the issue is something that some proponents of AI highlight as a feature: the lack of opinion or bias. Now, this also isn't entirely true. AI has no opinion or bias of its own, but will parrot whatever you feed into it or tell it to say, so claiming that AI has no bias is really trying to pretend that it's some perfect logical machine like a sci-fi AI, when it's not even really thinking and is instead just mimicking patterns. But for the purpose of video essays, these are equivalent because what is the value of a video essay where the creator has no point of view? Moreover, because AI cannot gather information itself and is reliant on information fed into it, it cannot bring anything new to the table. It can't have a fresh take or explain something about a game no one else has really dug into before. One of the most important parts of a video essay, I believe, is the creator's voice, and one made with AI is fundamentally capable of having that because the AI cannot play the game to form its own opinion. You deserve better than AI slop content. You deserve media made by people who care. The spread of the idea of content, interchangeable and of no real value on its own, is one of the most harmful things to modern culture. It has led directly to the proliferation of slop and AI slop. Honestly, I am looking forward to the AI bubble popping, even if there ends up being repercussions, because one of my biggest issues with AI, unlike things like NFTs or the metaverse, is that it's really hard to just ignore it and have it not affect you. Whether it's rising electricity costs, intrusive AI features, Microsoft trying to force people onto Windows 11, increasing costs of computer hardware, those last two together being a really nasty one too. AI has externalities that are felt by everyone, no matter if or how they use AI themselves. It might be why companies are pushing it so hard. If it isn't a world-changing technology, the externalities made everyone's lives worse for nothing. And maybe the end of underpriced, subsidized AI costs will mean less AI slop. I mean, as I worked on this OpenAI shutdown Sora, good riddance, because that's another thing everyone has to deal with, even and especially if they don't want to touch AI or AI-generated content. I'm fucking sick of finding a new YouTube channel and having to be skeptical. Fuck, I would not want to be someone trying to start a new YouTube channel in 2026 because they don't have a long history of videos to prove that at least at one point they were a real human. In the end, I feel like AI is another tech fad drummed up by companies desperate for something to sell you after they stopped having good ideas after smartphones, like NFTs or the metaverse. You can see it in how the term is slapped wherever it can be regardless of the underlying technology, and how generative AI is being shoved into places it has no business being. Any potential it had is overshadowed by the unrealistic hype, and the fact that the most hyped consumer-facing applications tend to be kind of junk. I'm not so dogmatic that I think AI is without value, but most of the convincing use cases I have heard of are either in specialized fields or as niche tools that are merely neat and handy. And maybe I'm wrong, but honestly, so much of the AI boom has been built on lies and overhyping that I don't think I will look particularly crazy if I somehow am wrong. I mean, heck, even the name is kind of a lie. The biggest lie of AI is that this is somehow something with the potential to be a true artificial general intelligence. Calling it AI is meant to make you think of AI in science fiction, but that's just a distraction. A lie to convince proponents that it's this amazing, smart, perfectly logical tool, and to distract detractors with concerns of Skynet and other sci-fi stories so that they don't focus on the present and immediate harms. When so much of the AI stuff people are most likely to see and interact with is mostly lies and exaggeration, is it really weird that a lot of people don't have faith that there's any good application for AI? It's the boy who cried wolf and all that. And that's that. I don't really feel like there's much to ask you to comment on to drive engagement, so this is Mikhail, signing off.